If you're like many Americans, you might not know much about Qatar. Perched on the Arabian Peninsula, Qatar is one of the smallest countries in the world, just slightly larger than Connecticut. But oil has made Qatar one of the richest countries. It's that kind of money, plus its strategic location, that has Qatar playing an oversized role in a number of controversies involving the Trump administration and people linked to the president. For example, Qatar's UN mission in early 2018 dropped a whopping $6.5 million for an apartment in a building owned by President Donald Trump. Qatar already had owned $10 million worth of other apartments in Trump World Tower in New York. Qatar, for years, has allowed the U.S. military to keep its Central Command base in the country, where more than 10,000 American and allied troops staff the nerve center for U.S. military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. But Qatar has been a source of irritation to its neighbors, who also are U.S. allies. Those tensions boiled over in June 2017 when Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates imposed a diplomatic and travel blockade on the country. They were irked by Qatar's funding of the Al Jazeera media network and also by Qatar's support for militant Islamic groups. The blockade was triggered by a story in Qatar's state-run news agency that quoted the nation's leader lavishing praise on Hamas and calling Iran, quote, an Islamic power. Qatar claimed the story was fake and the result of a hack, but it outraged Qatar's fellow Sunni Muslim neighbors who view Shiite Muslim Iran as a regional menace. Qatar provided CNBC with a statement from Jassim Al-Thani, media attaché for the country, saying it's a force for stability in the region. Qatar has never supported terrorism or extremism in any form. The UAE and Saudi Arabia aren't alone in their criticism of Qatar. President Trump has offered conflicting opinions about the country. In May 2017, Trump told Qatar's ruler, "Our relationship is extremely good." But less than a month later, Trump congratulated Saudi Arabia on blockading Qatar.
The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level.
However, just a week after that, Qatar announced a $12 billion deal to buy F-15 fighter jets from the United States. By April, Qatar's emir was being warmly welcomed by Trump at the White House.
It's a great honor to have the emir of Qatar with us. He's a friend of mine, knew him long before I entered the world of politics. He's a great gentleman. We have a gentleman on my right who buys a lot of equipment from us, a lot of purchases in the United States, and a lot of military, airplanes, missiles, lots of different things. We're making sure that terrorism funding is stopped in the countries that we are really related to, because I feel related. But those countries are stopping the funding of terrorism. That includes UAE, it includes Saudi Arabia, it includes Qatar and others.
And Qatar has taken other steps to improve its image in the eyes of Washington. After the Saudi-led blockade, Qatar began paying a lobbying firm founded by former Trump campaign aide Barry Bennett $500,000 per month. In all, Qatar spent almost $5 million on the heels of the blockade by hiring lobbyists, ad firms, and Washington, D.C. lawyers in an effort to repair its status with the U.S. That kind of spending has raised eyebrows. A former American ambassador to Saudi Arabia quipped, "It's going to allow a lot of Washington lobbyists to buy vacation homes this year." Qatar says the money it has spent in the United States pales in comparison to what has been spent by its neighbors to defame Qatar's reputation. But Qatar did not reward attorney Michael Cohen, who, even while serving as Trump's personal lawyer, sought a payday from the country. In 2016, Cohen solicited a payment of at least $1 million from Qatar. The Washington Post reported it was all about access to and advice about the then incoming administration. Cohen was unsuccessful. Another Qatar-Trump connection involves Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor to the president. In March, NBC News reported that special counsel Robert Mueller's team is probing whether Kushner's business talks with foreigners during the presidential transition later affected administration policies towards Qatar. The Kushner companies reportedly had approached Qatar's sovereign wealth fund about possibly investing in the firm's financially troubled skyscraper at 666 Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. NBC News reported that Qatari officials considered turning over information about Kushner to Mueller, but they decided against it. In August, Brookfield Asset Management announced it had signed a 99-year lease for 666 Fifth Avenue, which will reduce or eliminate the financial squeeze facing the Kushner companies. The Qatar Investment Authority, the country's sovereign wealth fund, is one of the biggest investors in Brookfield. So while the Trump administration's dealings with Russia have gotten much more attention, it's worth keeping an eye on Qatar to see if it becomes a source of even more drama for Trump's presidency.